We've just had our successful entrepreneurs in studio, Lee's Electronics, and we've heard their inspiring story. You know, on BizToday, we also get experts in particular industries, and we've decided to have a focus in the next couple of episodes on media, technology, and innovation. So today, we're very lucky to have in studio that kind of person. You've heard about 3D printing, Arduino, and other cool techie innovation and creativity. There's a space in the Durban community. It's a community of like-minded people sharing ideas, making stuff, and changing the world. And we've got Steve Gray, head innovator at Makerspace, to take us into this amazing space. Welcome to BizToday, Steve.
Thanks, Nazreen.
It's wonderful to have you in studio, and I'm glad that you've come by to share what's sometimes an unknown space, Makerspace. So what is Makerspace?
Well, the interesting thing is the concept of a makerspace is actually a global concept. So it's a generic term, makerspace.
It is a generic term then.
Like a gym,
yeah.
A term like gym. But we saw an opportunity to be the makerspace and sort of lead the charge in that regard. So we positioned ourselves to try and be a support for anyone involved in anything regarding the maker movement, which is quite a big deal if you do some research overseas and you look at trends and you look at the way the world's moving. So definitely something people are going to get more and more, hear more and more about as time goes on. If it's the first time they've heard it today, you know, watch the space. But we're trying to be sort of leaders in that area and just create a platform and answer a need that isn't being filled yet.
Steve, give us a bit of insight into your background.
Okay, well, I studied mechanical engineering in between surfing and other pursuits, and it took me a while, but eventually got through the degree. And then I took up school teaching because I wasn't ready to go head on into industry. Yeah. And I don't know, just working in a factory just sounded like
it didn't sit well with you.
Yeah, and like just really boring, and so I avoided it as long as possible. And then I got engaged in it was my first year of teaching. Right. I wasn't really qualified to teach, but I had the sort of maths and science skills and all that. And it's quite a nice lifestyle with you know, teaching. You get nice long holidays, and you get you know, I didn't overcommit myself to work. And then I got engaged, so I thought I've got to get a real job. So I didn't have anyone wise at that point to tell me not to be crazy. There's no such thing as a real job. You need to start your own thing. So I went ahead and I got employed by a large manufacturing concern in South Africa, in Durban. And I was with them for about 6 years. So I learned a lot. I mean, you know, I got a great experience there, but it didn't quite fit me. So it was always a bit of friction with being in there, sort of not leading the charge and not being visionary and not being able to.
Was that the point of departure for you, where you said, I now want to build my own dream?
Yeah, the point of departure was 6 months into it, when I realized that my suggestions weren't being taken seriously in terms of where the business should go. It was just like fix your little block, you know, work in your little space. So yeah, it was just a wrestle with how to get out of that. And eventually with my brother-in-law, he offered me an opportunity to partner with him in a financial service business. So completely outside the industry I was used to, but I liked the idea of the business and I liked working with people. So I went ahead. I was already helping with this IT, so that was the natural progression. And then I took over, became like operations director of that business. And we grew nicely, and we you know, we had fun, but eventually we got to a point where we outgrew our management capacity. Yeah. So we couldn't grow anymore. We were at that level, at limits. We had about 30 people working with us. And then it just became a maintenance job. And I didn't realize at the time, but 2 or 3 years into that, you know, I just ran out of energy.
Lost the energy for that business.
Yeah, no, I physically like had a sort of reaction, whatever you want to call it, breakdown, midlife crisis, early midlife crisis, whatever. I just basically got to a point where I was like, this can't carry on, you know, I have to do something else. And I just took some time off. I took 3 months off from work, from everything. I left because in the time I'd also started all other little businesses. As you know, you see opportunities, you start these little things. And eventually I sort of redesigned my life, what I wanted to do. And there was at that point where I was thinking about, what do I actually want to do as my life? Because I've only got one life, and it's, you know, not quite halfway through, but call it halfway through. You know, now I've got to get serious about what I'm going to do, because I've got one chance. And that was when I thought, well, okay, what are the natural things I'm passionate about? And those 3 things were people. So even through teaching, varsity, school, being involved
the constant was people.
In ministry and helping people and counseling people was always people, developing people, taking them further than what they are, you know. So I'm not necessarily empathetic and then go, oh, shame, feel so sorry for you. But like, okay, sorry that happened, but look where you could go.
This is what we could do.
There was that. There was a tech. Since my dad, got us a computer when I was, in high school, whatever, and trying to figure out how to code games and crack games and just
right.
Technology, love gadgets, and then there was the creative element, which is something that I sort of departed from at school. It was actually my strongest kind of elements, my strongest subject. So I brought those three things back together and imagined a place where I would be able to do all those three things at the same time, and that's what
how the makerspace
came about. The makerspace, yeah.
So you obviously saw a potential area for development, or the makerspace was a response to a particular challenge that you identified in the Durban area.
Yeah.
What was that challenge?
Well, it was partly my own journey, obviously, as I said. It was partly just the fact that there was nothing catering for anyone who wanted to be creative in a physical way. So there's lots of places you can go to learn creative arts that allow you to paint or play music or do poetry or whatever. But where do you go if you want to create something, prototype something, make something new, play with machines and technology? There's nowhere really that's accessible. There's no like one place you can walk in and just use technology. You have to either invest it in yourself, which then creates a second problem of now the education or the barrier of
and the funding of that
interaction.
as well.
Yeah, but let's say you could fund it, then you've got to learn how to use it, and that's what most people have got some technology, some gadgets stacked away in the garage, gathering dust, because then they couldn't actually get to use it. And then finally, you might even have the drive to learn how to use it, but what you'll find is that if you don't have other people to do it with you, you're not inspired, your progress really wanes. You don't get the full benefit. So yeah, I just imagined a place where people could share resources and share equipment that I wanted to use, but I don't need to use all the time. How can I get other people involved?
So let's take a step back now. Yes. I think people are understanding that the makerspace is an innovative place where you go and build things. But what exactly do you offer and what do you do? So when people come in, what do they do?
How do they interact with the space? It's a new concept, and it's difficult for people to get it through their heads exactly how to work with it. But I try to make the example of a gym, because I think everyone understands how a gym works. There's treadmills and there's swimming pools and there's even a little bar with coffee and that sort of thing. And you pay a membership fee and you get to use the facilities.
Yeah.
And if you get stuck or you don't know how to use a machine, you can ask an instructor. They're there, that's their job. If you want some really specific instruction, like you're running a marathon or you're doing some training, then you need to hire a specialized facilitator and gym instructor. So it's the very same idea, is you can come to a place where instead of a treadmill, there's a laser cutter. Instead of a swimming pool, there's a 3D printer, and, et cetera, et cetera. So you get to use the equipment, pay a monthly fee for use of the equipment, and you get access to someone who knows how to turn it on and off and show you the basics of it. May not be an expert on that equipment in terms of your execution of what you want to make, but they can get you far enough that you can start using it yourself. And then if you do need specialized instruction, there is a way that you can also get that as well.
Because these activities are pretty new to our environment, I would think also. I mean, 3D printing is being pushed across the world in various industries to service them. It's a new innovation, so to speak.
Yes.
But people are cottoning onto it almost at a slower pace here. And I think the makerspace is trying to help push that process along even further. Yeah,
I think 3D printing's got a lot of press. There's quite a lot of buzz and hype around it. I don't think it's quite what people think it is. But what it is, it's a picture of what happens when you democratize things. So 3D printing technology came out in the 80s, but we haven't heard about it for 25 years. But now that it's been democratized, in other words, the patent expired, so you couldn't charge ridiculous amounts for it. Guys got together and made their own 3D printers and shared the plans and shared the designs, and the next thing you can buy one for 10,000 Rand.
And this is one of the things that people can do when they come to the makerspace.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So essentially, democratizing technology allows it to get to the average person, and then the innovation can then happen. So while it was kept in sort of behind glass doors because it was so expensive, people didn't have the opportunity to innovate.
And speaking of innovation, we recently had a conversation around innovation, especially with government and how they're able to facilitate that process or become enablers, as I heard you correctly remember you saying.
Yeah.
But what are your thoughts on how people in our particular, because we have a very interesting and dynamic environment, especially in South Africa, how can people apply the idea of innovation in this particular economy?
It's a difficult one because innovation can mean so many different things to so many different people. And I think you've got to be careful with packaging things and putting them in a box. Something like innovation is sort of a key thing to any industry and to any technology. So we can't really say, okay, how do we package innovation and tick that off the box? You know, we've got to say, how can we enable innovation in any sort of thriving or any developing part of what we want to achieve?
That's right.
So if we're looking at, say, social media and we're saying, well, we seem to have a very strong social media talent or resource within Durban, so how can we help, how can we innovate, how can we help that industry innovate to become even further market leaders, rather than sitting back and saying, well, we're innovators, or how do we package innovation and tagging it onto, you know, or making it something of its own.
So it's simply not reinventing the wheel, so to speak, but it's also about looking at a particular service or a product or the needs of people around you in a community and understanding how their needs are evolving to be able to meet that. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think what we need to do is inspire people, and we need to give them case studies, and we need to share. Like I think our biggest problem in South Africa, because of our history, as colourful as it is, there's a lot of divides between people, and there's a lack of trust. And there's a lot of people who've written, and very clever people, who talk about the power of trust, the speed of trust, and how trust is key in any successful business and any successful economy. So if me and you have an agreement, there's an element of trust that we're going to stick to what we say. Now, if we don't have that trust, we've got to stop and get contracts. But now if we don't even trust our contracts, we've got to have contracts that govern our contracts. Eventually, we don't get to do any business because we're so worried about
it's so what becomes so bureaucratic in the way.
Exactly. So so we need to inspire trust and sharing. And I think the sharing economy, the Uber, the changes to the world that are happening because of technology, unlocking these opportunities, those are the things we've got to harness. And we've got to say, how can we encourage people to share their ideas? So, give you an example, you're sitting around the bra and you're having a chat to someone and they're like, I got this great idea, but you can't tell anyone. As if an idea has any value in itself.
Unless it's executed. Exactly,
it's all in the execution. So instead of me saying you can't tell anyone, how about you help me execute this idea? I'll learn so much, and by the time I execute my 10th idea, I'll be a millionaire because I'll have got so good at execution. Whereas we have these ideas, we don't share them, we don't test them, and we think we're innovators or we think we've got ideas that are great, but they're actually not, they're rubbish. So I think our whole Durban even more so, the competition amongst small business, we see each other as competitors, where we should see each other as
collaborators.
Exactly. Like we can become a powerhouse in the world and supply services to the world. I mean, if a city like Durban becomes known for, let's just say, social media, for example, then we could get people from around the world coming, contacting Durbanites to say, well, you guys are the powerhouse, you guys are leading the charge. How can we get our services from you? But as it is, we backbite each other and we end up eroding our competitiveness, and then they go somewhere else. So we're going to decide, are we going to compete on a global scale, or are we going to compete like just with each other? And so I think our vision has got to be raised, and you'll see when you start sharing, the good that comes out of it and the opportunities that come out of it far outweigh the losses that we think we're going to incur.
I agree. I agree with that point, because I've also operating in the Durban business scene. You push so much for collaboration, but as you rightly say, I think the cultural conditioning that we have, that we don't have enough business to go around, needs to be broken. Because we do, and we have an economy where we're very lucky to be able to trade freely. I suppose the business legislation is a bit hard on us, where it's not always easy to get your business registered almost immediately. So there are many other factors, and we discussed this, I think it was at a workshop recently, where a number of social factors hinder the path to innovation.
Yes.
But in saying that, it doesn't mean that we can't take the resources around us and innovate with that. So how do you feel then on that point? Is innovation and entrepreneurship linked?
Definitely. I was thinking about that on the way here. Is how can you be an entrepreneur if you're not an innovator? Like, what are you doing how will you stay in business if you can't innovate? Because entrepreneurship is just going to be this challenge after challenge. You're going to have this idea, you're going to want to execute it, you're going to find that the first day you try and execute it, you're going to have something pop up that's going to throw you off. And you're going to, what are you going to do? You're going to have to innovate your way out of that problem, and innovate your way through cash flow challenges, and innovate your way through product development cycles. And the beauty of being a small business, or an entrepreneur, is that you're flexible and
you're able to make your own decisions.
You can adapt very
easily.
quickly.
That's it.
Whereas big business sort of has to choose a track and stick on that track, and that's where we talk about innovation and guys trying to create innovation programs. But people respond to a need. Necessity is the mother of invention. So anyone who's an entrepreneur has to innovate. So there will be innovators.
So essentially, you're saying a definition of innovation then is to be a problem solver.
Absolutely.
You're just solving problems all the time.
That's it.
So I'm wondering now, the makerspace allows people, they bring you into space, very innovative, creative space, and you're able to apply your mind in a very practical way to solve problems using logic.
Yeah.
Which is, hard sometimes for creatives, because all you want to do is move around and not think strategically. But how do you think, I think my question around this is, how do you think people can, or the idea of STEM can be applied in our knowledge economy? Because there's a big debate around STEM, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and that we're not doing enough, or the government is not doing enough, or civil society is not doing enough to be able to create that environment, because that's ultimately what's going to push further research and development for better solutions for our economy, right? So how do you think we can apply that better using the idea of innovation and places like Makerspace?
Yeah, I think anytime you start using acronyms, you enter into dangerous territory.
This is true, but
so we can't package.
It's sort of a necessary evil.
Absolutely,
in a way.
But what we're doing there is underlying that is we're packaging that as one problem.
Because are we doing enough to cultivate it? Is my question.
So why don't we start with the outcomes rather than take traditional schooling? We learn to learn maths up to certain levels before we ever get practical with maths.
Yeah.
So what we do at the Makerspace is we don't tell you all the theory of how a 3D printer works, or tell you all the theory of how polymers work, and laser cutting works, and inverse kinematics, and all these complicated underlying principles that are driving these machines. We don't tell you how to program the machines, none of that. We just say, what do you want to make? And you say, oh, I want to make a clock, or I want to make a 3D robot or something. And then we show you how to do that. And sometimes we don't know ourselves, we have to figure it out. But the internet is such a wealth of resource. You can pretty much figure out, if you've learned how to learn, you can pretty much teach yourself how to do anything.
That's it.
So we enable people to try new things and learn new things. And through learning that, they learn the underlying science, technology,
or the principles
engineering
of
principles.
Those industries.
If you make, I can give you a 4-year course on strength of materials, and how to make something strong. But I can also just give you a project, you make it and it breaks, and you realize that didn't work, and eventually you iterate your way to the same general understanding. Oh, I see, it's not thick enough. That's why it broke. I need to make it thicker and stronger. I need a stronger material. What's a stronger material? You start asking the right questions. So my encouragement and my answer to the big problem of how do we get more innovative? How do we influence people? How do we get better knowledge economy like we're all aiming for?
Yeah.
Is to try and create incentives, natural incentives for people. Like, for example, you want to make this, so here's how you make it. How do you, instead of starting with the fundamentals, before you can use a 3D printer, you have to learn how the software works, and how this works, and how that works, and then you have to do a course on plastic, and blah, 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 blah. All you need to know is don't touch the hot part, and if it makes bad noises, turn it off. Really, what else? So
we just need to be simple and practical in our approach.
Absolutely, and then you'll learn what you need to learn when you need it, because you'll have the incentive. Sure. So if I don't know how to do some complicated thing that needs a lot of science and maths to solve, I'm not going to do it as an abstract thing just for fun, or just because someone's going to give me a test on it. But make it something that I really want to solve because it answers a problem in my life, or there's a commercial need that's going to, then I'll figure it out. So for me, the answer is to enable people to explore and to play and to make it fun, and if you could take 3D printers to schools and not try and teach them, get all technical with them. Just say, hey, why don't you guys print these toys, print some toys, download the files on the internet, print them. They'll teach themselves. So I think much like a computer, like if you did computers at school, if you had to sit and do everything and you had to learn how to use a Word document, but you never got to really use it, or you never had to use it, you'll forget.
It doesn't make any sense.
But give someone a computer and just let them play on it, and they'll go and do what we say is a waste of time, playing computer games and doing whatever, browsing the internet, but they'll become an expert at using the tool.
Because of that experience. And I like that you say that, because, and also another part of our discussion at the recent workshop was about creating the necessary spaces, putting in the required IP, and allowing the development to happen, rather than hindering it with unnecessary bureaucratic legislation. Or I think the idea that it can't be done, which is what you were talking about earlier.
Yeah, so our sort of strategic plan, whether we thought about it or not, was we have to attract people because we don't have anyone funding us. So how do we get people to come and make things? And as an engineer, you think, well, you give people a laser cutter, they're going to come, they're going to queue up at the door. The truth is they won't. It's very intimidating. It sounds scary. It could be dangerous if you didn't know how to use it. And you'd call it a creative space, and suddenly everyone says, well, I'm not creative, I can't go.
That's it.
Other people are like, I'm not an engineer, I can't go. Engineers are like, I'm too busy, I can't go. So, you end up with this problem. So what you have to actually do is create an environment that people want to go to. And now you start looking at the other elements, not just the technicalities, like, do we serve good coffee? Which, yes, we do. Yeah. So, if
there's got to be some incentive to come in,
right? There's got to be. So there has to be a social element where it's fun, and I think those are the best models, the ones that work without any forcing.
Yeah.
So my advice to anyone in policy and anyone in government and anyone in industry bodies who's trying to figure these things out is find the guys who are succeeding, and accelerate them, get behind them. So like if someone came to us and said, well, we want to create this innovation center, we've got millions to spend. It's like, well, find the guys who are actually doing it on a bootstrap,
right.
And see how you can scale them, keep them honest, but see how you can get behind them and like buy us a whole lot of new equipment that creates more opportunities. And the motor industry now comes to us because we're the only ones in Natal with that particular...
Who can do 3D printing and be able to service them.
Well, everyone can 3D print because it's so cheap, but what about some tools that, that no one else has? Yeah. They're only a few of in the world, and bring those into a place where people will have to come. Traditionally, those sort of tools only get bought by a company, and that becomes a competitive advantage. If I'm the only motor manufacturer with X, Y, and Z tool, then I'm going to beat my competition. And that's fine, there's incentive, but in terms of investing and creating a pull, I'm saying to you, there's got to be a pull. So it might be that you've got the sort of equipment that no one else has, or you've got an environment that's just more fun, or and we're still trying to work that out. But
okay, so to wrap up what's been a very creative and incredibly interesting interview, because a lot of people are wrapping their minds around what they could actually do around tech and innovation and creativity. What are your final words of advice for people who want to become entrepreneurs, inventors, innovators, or they're doing it in a small way? What are some of your words of advice?
I think they need to be encouraged that they need to push through the challenges. They need to not be negative and not look for problems. Problems will find you. You don't have to look for them. Find other people who you can do this thing with. People who maybe are your competitors, who you're too scared to partner with. Find those people, partner, create a co-op. Work as a team, unlock resources together. Create an industry body where you have some clout with,
that's an important one,
Yeah, and then I think, you've just got to hustle. I mean, that's the reality. No one's going to come and solve all your problems for you. Like, don't wait for the government. Don't wait for big business. Don't wait for your buddy, to come and sort of answer all your problems. It's not going to happen. If you're waiting, you're not in the game.
A long time.
Yeah, just get started. Like, even if it's not perfect, just start, do something. You'll find a way. You'll improve.
You make the connections, and you'll be able to find a market for them. Steve, thank you so much for joining us on BizToday.
Cool.
It was an interesting conversation. I think the idea of innovation is spreading through our sometimes slow, sleepy towns and cities, but people are opening up to the fact that technology is the ultimate driving force, and it's something that we have to embrace completely. so that we can solve our own problems, if we could say that. So thanks very much. I hope we get you back in the studio.
Cool.
Talk to us about new innovations at the Makerspace. That was Steve Gray, head innovator, I would say, at the Makerspace. A very, very cool joint in Durban. If you're in another city, go and find a space that does the same thing and tell us your stories. You can tweet us at BizToday_ZA. When we come back from the break, we will be looking at a whole new other diary of events coming up for the rest of the year, and also some pretty cool, interesting apps that we've been investigating. So stay tuned for that. Okay, so let's look at your diary of events. We've got, you need to get your diary and your pen and paper now, whatever you're using, your iCal, Outlook, with the diary in it, whatever you want to be able to make sure you get these noted down. They're frequent ones that happen all the time. So there's no particular date, but you can go and visit their websites for more information. The first one is Startup Grind. Go to startupgrind.com. It's a monthly fireside chat hosted in cities across the country and across the world. So there's one in Johannesburg, Cape Town, and Durban. The one in Durban happens, I think, towards the 3rd week of every month. That pretty much should be for every other city in the country. Want to find out more? Go and find your city's Facebook page for Startup Grind. So it's Startup Grind Cape Town, Johannesburg, or Durban. And go and visit startupgrind.com. You can find all the dates there. Check out who are the latest celebrity speakers, people who've worked very hard to build their businesses, and go and listen to them and inspire yourselves. We always need, as entrepreneurs, to be able to have those stories that push us further so that we're not alone in our journeys. So go and find that. That's very, very pretty interesting one. And to network as well. We've also got the hookup dinner that happens every month. As I said to you previously, hookup dinner is hookupdinner.co.za. It's the hookupdinner.co.za. They're also very active in social spaces. So get talking with people and just grow your network that way. Another way to grow your network is to tweet. What am I talking about? Well, go and follow this particular hashtag. It's called #EntropChat. That's ENTREPCHAT. It's also the name of a Twitter account. Some of the best leading minds and thought leaders in the entrepreneurial space come together on a Thursday evening between 7 and 8 to be able to talk about business. There are about 6 or 7 questions that are posed to the Twitter audience, and you can have your say with some of the best minds in the industry. So want to connect and grow your network, want to connect with the next person who could make your career happen or your business happen, then go and now and join that Twitter conversation. It's always nice to be able to build your own personal brand also in the social space. And then, as always, don't forget that I host a radio show too on Radio Al Ansar. So listen to me if you've missed this particular show on how to make it in South Africa every Tuesday evening between 9 and 10 p.m. That's Central African time, and catch more stories there on entrepreneurs. I hope you'll be joining me soon for that one. Until our next show, I'm Nazreen Ibrahim. Goodbye.